The wind pushed hard against the glass doors of the old post office. A metal sign swung back and forth, squeaking in the dark. Dust floated through a cracked window. The building had not seen customers in years. Marianne stood in front of the locked mailbox. Her black coat hung loose on her thin frame. One gloved hand held an old envelope close to her chest. Her other hand rattled the mailbox slot again. Nothing moved. Marianne, the widow, leaned forward. Her face was pale, her lips dry. She checked the numbers on the box. Still the same, 208. She whispered, "Just one more, please." No one answered. No postmaster. No sound except the creak of the roof beams above. Marianne stepped back and looked around. She moved behind the counter into the dim hallway. Her boots echoed on the wooden floor. Her hand brushed past the front. Desk drawers. One drawer would not open. It was locked shut. A faint red glow came from inside that drawer. Marianne paused. Her fingers hovered over the handle. She didn't open it. She turned and walked to the bench by the wall. She sat. The envelope in her hand was sealed with red wax. The edges were worn. This was her husband's letter, the one that never arrived. She had never opened it. She believed another would come, one that explained everything. Marianne stared at the door. She stayed still. The hours passed. The sky outside turned from black to deep blue. Then it happened. A shape moved outside the window. It was small, a child's shadow. Marianne stood fast. She stepped to the glass. The shape vanished. No one was there, only Marianne's reflection. Looked back. Marianne sat still on the bench. The envelope in her hand trembled. Her fingers brushed the red wax seal. The mark was shaped like a leaf. She had seen it before on his ring. Marianne, the widow, slipped the envelope into her coat. She unbuttoned a small inside pocket. The fabric was worn. From it, she pulled a second item, a folded cloth square. Inside it, another sealed envelope, untouched. The wax glowed faintly in the dim light. The first letter had never been opened. Her husband gave it to her before he left. That day was still clear in her mind. The train hissed steam. The platform was loud with voices. Marianne kissed her husband once, then again. He wore his travel coat, the one with the missing button. His hand stayed in hers too long. "Don't open it unless something happens," he had said. "And if something does, wait for the second letter. That one will explain." She tried to speak. She couldn't. The train pulled him away. Back in the post office, Marianne rose from the bench. Her knees cracked. She walked behind the desk. The wood smelled of ink and old paper. She opened each drawer one by one. Nothing but dust, nails, and an old pen. The last drawer wouldn't move. It was stuck. Marianne, the widow, crouched down. She pushed with her shoulder. The drawer popped open halfway. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was a wooden box. She pulled it out. The cloth fell away. A lockbox, small, heavy. On top of the wood, 3 letters were carved. HMW, her husband's initials, Harold Mason Ward. Her hand froze in midair. This box should not be here. The lock was sealed with red wax. The same wax from the first letter. She held the envelope and the box side by side. The seals matched. Same shape. Same press. Her thumb ran along the carvings. They were deep, clean, fresh, not old. Marianne whispered, "Harold." No answer. Only the low creak of the roof. She stepped back. The lockbox grew warm in her hand, not hot, warm like something alive. Marianne placed the box on the desk. The glow of the seal pulsed once, then stopped. She did not open it. Not yet. But the question burned inside her. What could a man send after death? The morning light turned gold through the dusty windows. Outside, boots crunched on gravel. A hand pounded on the post office door. Marianne stood, still holding the sealed envelope with the red wax. Her hand went to the latch, but the door swung open first. A man stepped in. Broad shoulders, brown uniform, silver badge. His voice was rough. "Ma'am, you can't be in here." The man was Sheriff Clay. He looked around, confused. The room smelled like mold and smoke. Marianne didn't move. "I'm waiting for someone," she said. Sheriff Clay, the lawman, took off his hat. His eyes stayed on Marianne. "This building's been closed 5 years," he said. "Mail goes through Shelby now. No one sent anything from here in a long time." Marianne, the widow, stepped forward. She held up the envelope. "Someone." "Will?" Sheriff Clay narrowed his eyes. "What's that?" Marianne handed him the envelope. He turned it over. Then he stopped breathing. Sheriff Clay stared at the postmark. His lips moved without sound. "This date. This was stamped 1. Day after Harold Ward died." Marianne nodded. "He said he'd send one more." Sheriff Clay's hand shook. "Ma'am, this ain't right." Marianne looked him in the eyes. "I saw a child outside the window. She delivered something. I think she'll come back." Sheriff Clay, the lawman, looked toward the door. "No kids out there. You sure you're feeling okay?" Marianne didn't. Blink. She was there. Sheriff Clay reached into his coat. He pulled out a photo. It showed Harold Ward, standing in uniform. The photo was dated 2 years ago. The word "deceased" was stamped across the bottom. He held it out. This was official. Marianne took the photo. "He said I'd know when it came." Sheriff Clay opened his mouth to speak, but stopped. The envelope in his hand glowed. Faint red. The wax seal pulsed once. The sheriff dropped it. The air in the room turned cold. Marianne knelt and picked it up. She looked at the seal, still warm. Sheriff Clay backed toward the door. "You shouldn't be here." Marianne said nothing. The envelope rested in her hand. The red wax shimmered again. What if some letters aren't meant to be returned? The cold made Marianne curl tighter on the wooden bench. Her coat wrapped around her knees. The envelope stayed pressed to her chest. Light crept in through the cracked glass. Morning had come. Marianne, the widow, blinked and sat up. Her neck ached. Her hand reached for the sealed lockbox on the counter. It was still there, still warm. The front door was open. A child stood in the doorway. She was barefoot. Her skin was pale. Her dark hair hung over her face. She wore a thin dress white with dust. In her hands she held an envelope. Marianne stood slowly. "Hello?" Her voice shook. The girl said nothing. She walked forward in silence. Her bare feet made no sound on the wooden floor. Marianne, the widow, stepped back as the girl came close. The child placed the envelope on Marianne's lap. Gently. Her hands were ice cold. The girl raised one hand. She pointed to the lockbox on the desk. The wax seal on it glowed again, just for a second. Then the girl turned and walked away. Marianne called out, "Wait! Who are you?" No reply. Marianne followed fast, her boots slamming on the floor. She rushed to the door. The street outside was empty. The dust was still. The sun rose slow behind the church. No child. Marianne looked left, then right. No footprints in the dirt. No sound. No door creaked. Nothing moved. She looked down at the envelope in her hand. The red wax seal was the same as before. But the date on the letter was not. It was marked today. Marianne turned in all directions. The child was gone. But how could a silent child deliver a letter from a dead man, dated today? The envelope sat in Marianne's lap. The red wax seal was unbroken. The eye. Sunlight touched it gently. It looked alive. Marianne, the widow, stared at the date again. Today. Her breath caught in her throat. She peeled the seal open with care. The paper was thick. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the page. The handwriting. She knew it. It was him, Harold Ward, her husband. Same crooked S, same tall slanted M. She had memorized it long ago. She traced the loops with her fingertip. Tears filled her eyes. She blinked hard. The letter was short. "You found the box. Only you can open it. Now it needs something old, something we buried. Check your coat. Use the compass. You'll know where to go next," Marianne whispered. "Compass." She shook her head. "What compass?" She reached into her coat pocket. Nothing. She checked the inside flap. Nothing. Then a sound. A soft clink. Something slid down her lining. A weight tugged near her hip. Marianne, the widow, reached inside the seam. Her hand scraped against metal. She pulled it out. A brass compass. Old. Scratched. Familiar. she gasped. This was hers. Lost in the river 3 winters. Ago she had dropped it while crossing. The current swept it away. She had never seen it again until now she turned it over. Her initials were still on the back, MEW. Her hands shook. Her throat went dry. She looked back at the letter. Use the compass. Marianne stepped toward the lockbox. Her hand still held the letter. The wax on the box glowed red again just once, then stillness. Marianne stared down at the compass, but how did it find its way back into her coat? Marianne held the brass compass in one hand, the lockbox in the other. The carved initials on the box, HMW, were smooth beneath her fingers. The red wax seal still pulsed faintly in the light. Marianne, the widow, brought the compass close to the lock. There was no keyhole. But the box clicked anyway. One soft sound, like something exhaling. The lid creaked open. Inside, wrapped in folded cloth, sat another envelope. Beside it, a single white feather, small, clean, weightless. Marianne reached for the envelope. Her fingers trembled again. She did not open it yet. Her eyes dropped to the feather. Marianne touched it gently. It reminded her of the birds outside their first cabin. Harold used to say feathers carried secrets. She unfolded the letter. The paper smelled like ash. The handwriting, still his. If you're reading this, then someone let you in. I was followed, I don't know by who. I was never supposed to make it back. They took something, they left the rest. I didn't trust anyone except you. Marianne's heart pounded louder than the wind outside. She gripped the feather. She turned the letter over. There were no names, no signs, just one more line. Find the girl again. She knows where I rest. Marianne looked up. The post office was still, empty. The compass lay beside the feather. Her tears came slow this time. No sobs, no sound, just water down her cheeks. She folded the letter. Her hand rested on the box. Feather, letter, compass, proof, pieces of him. But one question stayed. Who followed Harold? And what were they trying to stop? The wind had changed. It blew through the dry grass in long, slow breaths. Marianne stepped past the last fence post at the edge of town. In her hand, the brass compass trembled. Marianne, the widow, kept her eyes on the needle. The path was gone. No signs, no markers, just dirt and low hills stretching into fog. The compass spun left, then right, then froze. Marianne turned her boots to match its direction. The land rose beneath her feet. The trees grew closer, then thicker. Leaves crunched. The sky dimmed behind the clouds. The compass began to spin again, wild, restless. Marianne paused. Where are you taking me? She whispered. The compass needle slammed north. Then it stopped. Marianne looked up. A white birch tree stood in front of her. The bark was peeling. The roots had grown over something. She dropped to her knees. She placed the compass on the ground. Her hands dug into the soft soil. Her fingers struck stone. Marianne cleared the dirt. A small flat headstone appeared, cracked down the center. She wiped it clean. The name carved on it was not Harold Ward. It said, Thomas Alden, 1884-1910. Marianne leaned back. Her hands were shaking. Why here? She asked aloud. Why this? Name? The wind held no answer. Then, music. A faint humming came from behind the trees, high and soft. A child's voice. A lullaby. Marianne stood. Her ears strained. Her heart pounded. She turned toward the sound. Someone else was out here. The humming grew clearer. Soft, slowed by the breeze. Marianne turned toward the sound. Her boots crushed dry leaves. The compass hung around her neck now, the feather tied to it with string. Near a crooked tree, the child stood barefoot. Marianne, the widow, stepped forward. It's you, she whispered. The girl didn't speak. She kept humming, low, like a tune remembered from long ago. Her eyes looked past Marianne, not afraid, not warm, just still. The girl held something in her small hands. It was a photograph. Worn at the edges, yellowed. She walked forward and placed it in Marianne's palm. Marianne looked down. 5 soldiers stood in a row. Dust on their boots, eyes hard but young. One of them, center left, was Harold. Same face, same eyes. But the name written below wasn't his. The name said, Joseph Keller. Marianne's heart dropped. She looked at the other men. One of them stood at the far right, older, smiling slightly. It was Mr. Brandley, the retired postmaster. She had seen him just last spring, still alive, still living near the courthouse. "What is this?" Marianne whispered. The girl said nothing. Marianne turned the photo over. Stamped on the back was the old postal seal. The date, March 2nd, 20 years ago. The town seal, Brandley's name. Ink faded, but clear. Marianne's fingers clenched the photo. Harold had used another name, and the postmaster had known. The wind picked up. The humming stopped. Marianne looked up, but the girl was gone again. The compass spun once against her chest. The feather danced. Why would a man hide his name? And what secret did 5 soldiers take to their graves? The air was dry inside the house. Dust clung to every surface. Papers covered the table, spilling onto the floor. Old maps, yellowed envelopes, dried-out ink pens. Marianne stood just inside the doorway. She held the photo tightly in her hand. Her coat brushed the edge of a chair. Across the room sat Mr. Brandley, the retired postmaster. His white hair was thin, his eyes cloudy. He didn't. "Look up, Brandley," Marianne said. "We need to talk." The old man didn't move. Marianne stepped closer. "I found this." She laid the photo gently on his lap. Mr. Brandley, the postmaster, touched the picture with both hands. His fingers traced the edges. Then he spoke. "I thought this was burned. I thought it was gone." Marianne kept her voice low. "That's my husband. His name's not Joseph Keller. His name was Harold Ward." Mr. Brandley nodded slowly. "He changed it when he came back from the war. They all did." "Why?" Mr. Brandley leaned back. "Because of what they knew." He coughed. His hands gripped the sides of the chair. Marianne, the widow, stepped closer. "What did they know?" "They found out what I did," Brandley whispered. "I tampered with letters, rerouted them. Some were dangerous. Others were just meant to vanish. Someone paid me." Marianne's eyes narrowed. "Blackmail?" Brandley nodded. "Your husband started asking questions. He said things weren't reaching the right people. He found an old routing list. He told me he wrote you, told you everything." Marianne pulled out the envelope with the red wax. She held it in front of him. "This one?" she asked. Brandley froze. His fingers reached toward it. He touched the seal, then shook his head. No, that letter was stolen, never mailed. It was taken the day after he died." Marianne's voice cracked. "So how did I get it?" Brandley looked up at her. For the first time, his eyes held fear. "You weren't supposed to." Marianne took a deep breath. She reached into her coat and pulled out the photo again. "This girl," she said. "You know her?" Brandley's hands trembled. He took the picture again. He stared at the child's face. Then the color drained from his skin. "She's mine," he whispered. "My granddaughter. She died in the fire years ago, or so I thought." Marianne stepped back. Her heart raced. Brandley's voice broke. "Her name was Lily. She disappeared the same day your letter did." Marianne clutched the compass around her neck. The room grew silent. Marianne whispered, "She's not delivering letters. She's trying to finish what he started." Brandley nodded once. Then he buried his face in his hands. The girl wasn't a messenger. She was the message. The road outside town was dry and cracked. Dust curled at the edges of the tires. The wind carried the smell of smoke, even though the fire was long gone. Marianne, the widow, stood at the edge of the burned foundation. The house was nothing but black wood and sagging nails. Nature had started to take it back, grass poking through ash, vines curling around stone. This was where the fire happened, the one no one talked about anymore, the place where Brandley's granddaughter vanished. Marianne stepped forward. The wood crunched under her boots. Charcoal dust rose and settled again. Her coat caught on a nail. She didn't stop. Near the center of the ruin, the girl waited. She stood still beside a broken beam. Her feet were bare. Her dress was grey from ash. In her hands, nothing. In her eyes, everything. Marianne knelt beside her. The girl pointed at the ground. Marianne brushed the debris away. Old boards cracked beneath her palms. Something pale showed through the black. She dug with both hands. The earth gave way. A sealed envelope lay beneath the floorboards. The paper was stained but whole. The wax seal was faded, not red, white. Marianne picked it up gently. She looked at the girl, still no words, just quiet. Marianne turned the envelope over. The handwriting was softer now, not sharp and rushed like the others. One name was written in smooth, careful letters, "To my Lily." Marianne's breath caught. This letter, this wasn't for her. She opened it. The ink had bled, but most of the words remained. Each one was written with care. "I knew someday you'd come back to this place. I hope someone kind would be there to meet you. If she's reading this with you, then I know it's safe. They told me to stay quiet. I didn't. They took my name, but not my promise. You are more than what they left behind." Marianne wiped her eyes. "Stay close to her, Lily. She knows the way. This world didn't want us, but it can't erase us. You are loved. You are known." Marianne folded the letter slowly. The girl looked up at her. Marianne placed the letter in the girl's hands. They sat together as the first light touched the ruins. Two shadows. One story. Harold wasn't just protecting a secret. He was protecting a daughter. The morning sun broke over the rooftops. Light painted the town gold. Doors opened. Curtains shifted. People watched from porches. Marianne, the widow, walked down the center of the street. She held the girl's hand. The child walked without fear. Her dress was still grey with ash, but her eyes were steady. Boots echoed on wood as Sheriff Clay stepped off the boardwalk. His face was pale, his voice low. "I got your message." Marianne nodded once. Sheriff Clay looked at the girl. He pulled a folded paper from his coat. It was old, faded, a missing child report. He held it up. "Lily Brandley?" The girl didn't move. Sheriff Clay, the lawman, took off his hat. "I'm sorry," he said. "We gave up too soon." Marianne gave a small nod. No words, no blame. They kept walking. The post office stood ahead, doors still shut, paint peeling, signs swinging, slow. A clerk waited outside. He unlocked the doors without speaking. He opened them wide, then stepped away. Inside, the building was quiet, still smelled of dust and old paper. Marianne, the widow, stepped behind the counter. She placed 3 envelopes on the desk, one addressed to her, one to Lily, one to no one, blank, no name, no stamp, just sealed with red wax. Marianne reached for the stamp pad. She pressed each letter, firm and slow. Thump, thump, thump. The clerk took them without a word. He placed them into the slot. The sound echoed like a drumbeat. Done. Marianne turned. The girl stood by the door, still silent. Then she spoke. One word. Home. Marianne froze. Her eyes filled. The post office door swung open behind them. Wind moved through the room. The clerk looked away. The sheriff stared at the floor. The letters were gone. Not all things lost in fire are gone forever. The light through the post office windows was clean, clear. No dust moved in the beams, just stillness. Marianne, the widow, stood on a small wooden stool. She reached up to the old nail above the doorframe. In her hand she held the brass compass and the white feather, tied together by a single piece of string. She looped the string over the nail and let it hang. The compass turned once, slow, then stopped. The feather swayed gently in the morning air. Behind her the girl stood at the counter. Her eyes were calm. In her hand she held something. It was a letter. No one had seen it before. It wasn't in the lockbox. It hadn't come through the slot. It had just appeared. The envelope was sealed in red wax. The mark was Harold's. Marianne stepped down from the stool. Her knees ached, but her heart did not. She walked to the child. The girl placed the letter in Marianne's hand. Marianne opened it. The paper was warm, the ink fresh. If you're reading this, then everything worked. You found her. You believed when no one else would. That's what love is, Marianne. Not waiting, but walking. Her eyes blurred. She kept reading. You didn't need a trail, you made one. You didn't need a map, you had her. You didn't need proof, you carried it all along, the feather, the compass, the letters. This is the last one. There's nothing more to find. Just go forward, keep going. You found her. Marianne folded the letter. Her fingers didn't shake this time. She looked at the girl, Lily. The child smiled. Just once. They stood there together as the sun rose higher. No one else entered. No footsteps outside, no wagons passed by. The wind stirred softly outside the door, but the wind carried no dust that morning.